Lead Story. Weekdays at 6 p.m. Hosted by Jodi-Ann Quarry.
Brought to you by
VC's Electrical Sales.
Horizon, a new loan product from Access Financial Services.
Welcome to Jamrock. Jamaica. Oh, my reggae nice and it take ya.
It is such a joy to be here this evening with you at the 2025 Hummingbird Gala.
The American Friends of Jamaica presents its Hummingbird Gala, honoring Joseph Joe Bogdanovich and Jason Hensel.
We're celebrating business leaders. We are celebrating public servants, philanthropists.
Don't miss it this Thursday at 8 p.m. on CVMTV.
We begin tonight with the Supreme Court's decision in the case brought by Lasanya Harrison against the Jamaica Teachers Association. Mrs. Harrison served as JTA president from 2022 to 2023 and has since been elected with a new term set to start this year in 2026. So with all that happening, we're looking at this as the case arose from a special general conference held on March 12, 2023, at the height of salary negotiations with the government. That meeting was held virtually and delegates voted by a significant margin of 629 to 147 to accept the government's wage offer. Mrs. Harrison challenged the validity of the meeting and the vote, arguing that the JTA's constitution required physical presence and that an amendment allowing virtual meetings had not been filed with the company's Office of Jamaica. The court rejected those arguments. It found that the JTA had passed a resolution in 2021 to permit virtual meetings and that the company's Amendment Act allowed electronic voting and online meetings unless expressly prohibited. Crucially, the court ruled that the failure to file the amendment was a procedural irregularity, punishable by a fine, but not one that invalidated the decisions taken by the JTA. The claim was dismissed and costs were awarded to the JTA. And that's your background to this conversation. Joining us to discuss the ruling and its implications, King's Counsel representing the Jamaica Teachers Association, Caroline Hay. Good evening and welcome to Lead Story.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us. King's Counsel, this was not a challenge to wages themselves, but process. Yes. From the JTA's perspective, why were they brought to court? What's the principle they understood themselves to now having to counter in court?
Well, your summary is accurate in terms of what the case was about. The case was about a challenge to the decision that was taken by the majority of the membership of the JTA by means of the method used to take the decision. The case complained that the meeting at which the decision was taken, it being held virtually, that it was not compliant with the language of the Articles of Association of the JTA as a company that said that meetings should be in person. But it did not take into account the fact that there was actually, prior to the meeting, a resolution to amend the articles, and also that post-COVID, the government had amended the Companies Act to allow company meetings to take place virtually, and unless the articles of the companies, the articles of association of the company prohibited it, then there was an automatic amendment of articles to facilitate company business carrying on when we were having restrictions of gatherings of persons for the numbers issues that we had under the DRMA orders. So you've summarized it quite well. That's what the claim was about. It was a procedural challenge, but it would have had the effect of unraveling the effect of the decision since the day the decision was taken and since the wage offer was accepted. So
In reality, what would that have meant? Would that have meant that the wage offer accepted in 2023 by the JTA would now no longer exist?
The claim was that the agreement that was arrived at should be held void because the steps that led to that agreement, the forum by which the decision was made of the majority, was not a valid one. And so it would have meant that the basis on which, or the power they would have had to agree with the government, was arrived at in a manner outside the scope of their constitution. I can't say that it would automatically have meant that the major agreement would have been voided, but I know that that was part of the late Mrs. Harrison's claim. So that's what was being aimed at in the papers that were filed.
We're looking at a case, though, that a union has, not the president representing the union coming before the court, but the court indicating that it appeared that Mrs. Lasagna Harrison was going there in her individual capacity to now argue against a vote, an overwhelming margin vote, 600 odd to 147. That seemed to be a big part of the case. Why was that important?
Well, when you are going to act on behalf of a body or you're bringing the case in a representative capacity, you have to prove that you actually have that capacity. Mrs. Harrison did not present her claim as though she was representing the interests of the JTA. She filed that claim in her personal capacity as a member of the JTA. So the standing point that was being raised by the judge, do you have standing to bring this claim, was a point that was being raised in the context of the remedy that was being sought would not affect Mrs. Harrison alone, but it would affect all the members who voted for the package.
Including the 629 who had said on behalf of the membership, they put their hands up and said, we want this money.
It would have impacted all of them. And when we opened our response in trial, we made the point that all those persons, should Mrs. Harrison's claim succeed, might be affected by the outcome of the decision because they might all now be put into debt. Having accepted the package, if the package is reversed, then the question would be what of all that value that would have gone to them by way of increase. But the case for us wasn't a labor law case. The case for us was a procedure case. And the narrow question for us was, given the admitted non-filing of the amendment to the articles, what was the impact of that on the decision? And what the court went with was, well, the Companies Act tells you what the impact of the decision is, of the failure to file is. You pay a fine. And so it really was just, it boiled down to a question of interpretation of the provisions of the Companies Act and what they meant. But the majority, as you've put it, overwhelming majority, voted in favor of the decision that was taken. And that's the court upheld the principle that once a body makes a decision, the decision takes effect from the moment it is made. What you do with it subsequently may or may not be a procedural issue, but it doesn't affect the validity of the decision.
That's broadly then what it is that the JTA might take from it, but it has even more implications because this is a trade union whose members have made a decision and someone says they don't agree with the decision. How does this ruling clarify how far courts are willing to go when asked to intervene in these sorts of things, the internal affairs of unions and other membership-based organizations?
I don't know that what was brought to the court allowed a discussion on that question you've asked. Broadly, courts take the view that they do not have power generally to involve themselves or be involved in the internal workings of corporate bodies. Associations self-regulate and self-manage. They are governed by the laws that supervise them. So if they are registered as companies, in this case, the union is a company limited by guarantee, then their governing statute is the Companies Act, and their internal workings are governed by their articles. Courts generally, as a general principle of law, do not intervene or interfere in the inner workings of companies. There are some powers that are given to persons depending on their complaint under the Companies Act to complain. Or if you're complaining of a breach of a fundamental natural justice right, a court can intervene because of a supervising, overarching jurisdiction. Otherwise, if you are complaining about how a decision was taken, when it was taken, who took it, that is not generally an issue for a court. That is generally an issue for your articles.
So the organization itself looks at its own rules and says, this is how we deal with it.
Correct. And that is how it is to be. And otherwise, you become a police state. Entities are allowed to self-regulate. They can manage themselves and take business decisions that are in their best interest. And in this case, in addition to the amendment to the articles, there was this statutory change. After COVID, the government amended the Companies Act to make provision for meetings, the modality to change, because you would recall there was a period of time when people couldn't gather, and you couldn't gather in groups of larger than certain amounts, and you had physical distancing requirements, and those, it was a criminal offense to breach those. So, but companies still had to do their business. People had to have their annual general meetings. They had to lay their financial statements. They had to make decisions as corporate bodies and function. So the government amended the law before this decision was taken to allow for a company to have these meetings virtually.
I think that's so important for persons to understand as well, the practicality of the time in which this took place, the understanding that we were in the middle of a pandemic, that we had to have these sorts of rules, and that the law did in fact amend to allow for it to take place. What the court...
After the JTA made its own decision.
Right, to do so. So it said, JTA, you decide, the law also permits you to go ahead and do it. This is what we have here now. With Lasagna Harrison now losing that case, and the JTA now having defended so stridently, are you looking, as far as you're aware, to a challenge to this decision in higher courts?
Yes, we are.
So you know that there's going to be an appeal, okay? An appeal on what ground?
I guess we'll have to look at what the document is likely to say.
All right, well, we're watching this case, then continuing to watch it. Lasagna Harrison goes in as JTA president this year, 2026. And so we'll be...
That's the beauty of democracy.
There you go.
They wish to lead them.
And so we are going to be watching as the former president, who at the time hadn't signed the documents, now had a court case in the time she was not president, and now will sit as president of the organization that will have to defend itself against her. We'll watch then and we'll see. King's Counsel Caroline Hay, who represented the Jamaica Teachers Association, thank you so very much for joining us inside Lead Story. This ruling was not just about one union or wage agreement. It raises a much broader question. How do democratic organizations handle dissent without undermining collective decision making? We'll talk about that next.
Need of a loan? AIM Financial is the place to go. We have loans from $20,000 to $3.3 million. Get a loan to pay school or college tuition, medical expenses, bills, fix up your house, buy furniture and appliances, repair or buy a car. And when you're done, take a vacation loan. AIM has a loan for any purpose. Call AIM today. You won't find a better deal elsewhere. Guaranteed.
The National Rural School Bus Program is getting smarter. With your child's student ID card, parents receive real-time notifications every time they board or exit the bus. Each card is unique and securely linked to the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth, and Information database. Tap on, tap off, and parents stay updated instantly. So, how do you register? Number 1. Visit jamaica-district.mysmartterm.com/bus-portal/registration. Number 2. Enter your child's details. Number 3. Upload supporting documents. Number 4. Submit your application. It's that easy. Safer, smarter, more secure. Register today and ride with peace of mind.
Jamaica's unemployment rate has fallen to 3.3%, down from 13.2% in 2016. Our government's continued focus on job creation is delivering real results. We are building Jamaica. The Time by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Inside Lead Story. We're now joined by attorney at law Carla Ann Harris-Roper to help us understand the wider implications of this case between former JTA President Lasagna Harrison, who is now to be JTA President in 2026, and the Jamaica Teachers Association. Welcome to Lead Story.
Thank you.
Carla Ann Harris-Roper, we're watching this case, the drama, the intrigue, the back and forth as we see the JTA having to defend itself from a former president who is now incoming as president for 2026. Is that unduly dramatic for you?
No. I think their nomenclature is president-elect.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
So she's currently president-elect for 2026. She now takes office this year. Mark Malava, currently president of the Jamaica Teachers Association. But this is a case where the former president brought the association before the courts, and now to defend what we've heard is likely to be a legal challenge and appeal. She'll be sitting as the president as the association defends itself from her, and she as president has to defend the association from herself. That sounds mixed up and unduly complicated. Is that something that you've seen before?
No. I can't recall seeing anything like that before, but I am sure that in some jurisdictions something like this has happened. That's the beauty of industrial relations, because of the nature of how things operate. Recall, as Casey Hay says, you know, this is the beauty of democracy. But it's also important to appreciate the decisions that person make by joining trade unions, by there being what we call a bargaining unit, and collectivism. Because the truth of the matter is, we come from a long history of trade unionism in this country. In fact, for those of us, just to give us a little bit of history lesson, our political parties were birthed from trade unionism. One of the things we have to also appreciate is that collectivism is something that, although it has waned a little, is very important in operations of business.
Then talk about this union tension then, because in this case we see a fundamental tension, that need for you to have that negotiating strength, that everybody coming together, pulling together gives us strength to be able to negotiate. But at the same time, you have internal democracy where you need to have every voice heard, and when somebody sees a decision made that they might not agree with, as we've seen in this particular case where one member said, I don't agree with the procedure that we used. The facts of the case, however, say that she is the one that called for the meeting, she's the one that presided over the meeting, and then overwhelming majority of the membership who came to that online meeting were in support of the wage offer that had been put on the table by the government.
Because if we
this was a back and forth with the government and the JT, and people wanted their money now. They made a vote, they had a vote, they decided. How do you deal with the tension? Unions protecting internal democracy while maintaining that negotiating power.
So I call it the collective one as opposed to the individual one. Think of it. It would be difficult for any organization, the government, any business, to be negotiating with multiple hundreds, thousands in the case of the teachers, to say, okay, I want this benefit, I want that benefit. There is a necessity, for want of a better term, to have a mechanism that is able to speak with one voice on behalf of the majority. You're not necessarily going to ever have everybody
being on the same page?
In fact, if we go to the Labor Relations and Industrial Disputes Act, it speaks to the fact that you have a right to form, to join and be a member, and not to be a member of a trade union. However, when we look at how the structures within the law is set up, you have a structure called the bargaining unit. So it is persons who have what we call a community of interest, that they are all related to similar type, they work in the same place or they have similar type of functions, and therefore you can conceptually think that persons in that circle, the majority of them would have similar type of, interests.
Yes. So like the teachers, for example.
Correct.
They'd be the ones who'd be sitting down there and saying, this wage offer that is going to be offered to all of us, we have similar concerns.
And that is different, from persons who are science teachers, different from food teachers, different from English teachers. You understand? Even within that, there are differentials. But it is important to appreciate that when you get to collective, the majority is what is going to rule.
If the majority is going to rule, however, in this particular case, we had one member who said, I saw the process. She isn't taking a position, as King's Counsel Caroline Hayes said, that the vote shouldn't have happened, but she's saying the process under which it took place was flawed, it was faulty. That is the problem that she's highlighting. Caroline Hayes says it's not a labor relations case, but I disagree. I think that it is very much steeped in the idea of how the people who voted get to have that vote count when compared to someone who is a former president, now incoming president, has a completely different position on something. Does that matter in a case like this?
Yes and no. It's a very touch and go. Everyone is entitled to have their own opinion. The question is, can your individual opinion override the majority of the rest of the persons who have decided to band together by virtue of membership and being in a bargaining unit to take a collective position?
Because the 629 that said yes are joined by the 147 who said no, but all of them voted on this online platform.
Those are only delegates.
Right. So those are only then a smaller number of the larger membership who were waiting for their money to come in, wants to pay off the bills, and this is 2023 now, you wanted to get this done.
What would have happened is that we expect these delegates to have polled their own colleagues, the thousands of teachers across the length and breadth of Jamaica. So if they spoke to their colleagues and they have been given a mandate, accept the offer. They come and they are the ones that says, listen, we are standing as representatives for our teachers in Magati, in St. James, in wherever. And they have said, we want to accept this offer. They are now standing there giving their positions through the delegates. And so when you
it's not just one, it's one with 10 behind them, that those 10 people expect you to vote now, given the conversation that we would have had.
Exactly. That is what ought to happen. Remember, when you look at collective bargaining and negotiations, these are rights coming down from international labor organizations. You have that right. But recall, there is that reason, that rationale. It would be unwieldy for an organization, say the government, to be having to go to every Jack Madora teacher to say, what is your issue?
Yes.
What is your issue?
So you come together as a union in the form of perhaps the JTA, and you have that discussion. But we have the JTA now potentially dealing with an appeal in this particular matter. What lesson should other public sector unions take from a decision like this as they finalize or revisit wage agreements, especially with the government?
It's a very important point. To ignore it, they would do so at their peril. You'd want to ensure that you have, I don't know how many other unions have this kind of duality that the JTA has in terms of being incorporated as a company on the one hand and being registered as a trade union under the Trade Union Act.
So the articles of association that give these rules might not exist for trade unions?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, because I think the JTA was being savvy in incorporating as a company because they have a number of other satellite businesses going on. They have a credit union, they have a housing corp, as far as I remember, because they tried as best as possible to give their teachers value added. And so they utilized, as far as I can recall, the provisions in law to incorporate. It's a company limited by guarantee. There are no shareholders per se. So I don't think that you have as many unions that are also
in the same position as
Exactly.
the JTA. But are there any lessons that they can take from this? Because it does seem that it opens a door that says a member can watch some sort of decision process being made, the membership having agreed, the majority, but I still don't feel happy with what took place. Are you seeing other unions perhaps being dragged to court on the same basis?
True. Always an option for a member. The question is, when you look at the provisions and how it is that they provide opportunities for voices to be heard, and the majority decision, that majority decision has to weigh, and prominently too, over and against one person. And remember, what was happening in this case is that it wasn't just that President-elect Harrison was speaking about herself. She wasn't just saying, I am aggrieved and I don't want it. In essence, what the implications were, as Casey Hay said, was that all these thousands of teachers who would have gotten an increase and retroactive funds, were it that the decision went otherwise, they could possibly be in a position of having to contemplate
giving back the money
to the government.
Right, and that'd be a mess.
A whole mess.
Functionally, it would be difficult then. Talk to us just before we go about what it means now for this organization that defended itself against its president, 2022 to 2023, to now have her come back as president, as they now have this appeal process hanging over them.
I tell you, Jodi-Ann, I'd want to be a fly on the wall there. It's going to be very interesting, because we'd also have to look at the hierarchy of the organization and how the power is distributed in the organization as it now has to navigate this. Is it that the president has a, let's call it a casting vote? Can they veto it like Donald Trump?
Hey.
Or is it that the organization has structures, it has a council, it has general counsel? Is it that any decision that the JTA has to make must go back to the membership?
And so those are definitely things then, as we watch this case unfold even more. Speaking with King's Counsel Caroline Hay earlier, she was counsel saying there's going to be an appeal. Carla Ann Harris Roper here, attorney at law, talking to us about the function of how that might look and what this might mean, not only for the Jamaica Teachers Association, but for any other body who has a member who is aggrieved. Well, certainly we'll have her back in as we watch this case, because maybe we won't have to be a fly on the wall. Maybe this will be a much more public.
Let's go. Question: what matters the most to perform your best on a Sigma race day?
Speed.
No, what really matters is what's in here, your heart.
Sagicor Sigma Run. Register now at sagicorsigmarun.com.
Hi, I'm Landy. Welcome to NLA Connect, the National Land Agency's customer engagement platform. NLA Connect is a simple, user-friendly platform designed to help you share your feedback, get support, and updates about land-related matters. Available 24/7, NLA Connect allows you to share suggestions, comments, and commendations, submit queries and report issues, attach files with your requests, track requests and get real-time status updates, connect with NLA client engagement officers, and provide feedback on the service received by the platform. We're making it easier for you to connect with us. You can access NLA Connect via our website, using the kiosk at any of our offices, or scanning the QR code displayed at our locations. Need any help along the way? Check out our FAQs section. It has all the answers you need in one location. NLA Connect, your voice, our priority.
Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out, don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
Our hearts break today as we now turn to culture and the loss of a nation. Jamaica is mourning the death of Sly Dunbar, one half of the legendary rhythm duo Sly and Robbie, and a man who helped shape the sound of reggae, dancehall, and popular music. From studio sessions in Kingston to international stages, Sly Dunbar's drum patterns became the backbone of an era. His passing comes just days before Reggae Month, a sobering reminder of the giants on whose shoulders Jamaica's cultural identity stands. Now, Lowell Fillmore Sly Dunbar has passed away at the age of 73. His wife confirmed that this morning as he was found unresponsive today. He had been unwell for several months, his wife Thelma shared with the Jamaica Gleaner. Sly Dunbar was a monumental figure in music, widely regarded as one of the greatest drummers of all time. As one of the half of the legendary rhythm duo Sly and Robbie, he, alongside bassist Robbie Shakespeare, redefined the sound of Jamaica and shaped popular music across the globe. He began his career at just 15 years old and quickly became a master of groove, a musician who did not simply keep time, but moved it forward. Sly Dunbar was most likely the most recorded drummer in Jamaican history, with estimates suggesting that he played on or produced more than 200,000 songs. His rhythms form the backbone of reggae legends, including Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, Bunny Wailer, Gregory Isaacs, and Black Uhuru, whose album Anthem won the first ever reggae Grammy in 1985. His influence reached far beyond the Caribbean. His distinctive drumming and production can be heard on records by the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, Mick Jagger, Joe Cocker, and Serge Gainsbourg, and on iconic tracks by Grace Jones, including Pull Up to the Bumper. Through their Taxi Records label, Sly and Robbie produced generation-defining rhythms, including Murder, She Wrote for Shaka Demus and Pliers, shaping the future of dancehall and global hip-hop. A 13-time Grammy nominee and 2-time winner, Sly Dunbar was a true icon, a tastemaker who adapted, evolved, and created new musical movements for more than 5 decades. He was a man who, it's often said, listened more than he spoke, and listened to the sound of the street, the sound of the machines, and the sound of the future. He once said he wanted people to hum his drum patterns. And today, millions around the world are doing exactly that, even if they don't know his name. Tonight, Sly Dunbar is reunited with his brother-in-arms, Robbie Shakespeare. The great rhythm section is whole once again. As we reflect on his life, we do not just mourn a loss, celebrate a frequency. Sly Dunbar taught us that music is not just about the notes you play, but the space between them and the steady, unwavering pulse that keeps us all moving together. Rest in power, Sly. The rhythm goes on. That's from all of us here at CVM and at Lead Story. But joining us now is musicologist, lecturer, and coordinator in the Entertainment and Cultural Enterprise Management degree program at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Dr. Dennis Howard. Dr. Howard, we have had you here on this show repeatedly over the past 2 months, talking about the loss of greats, Jimmy Cliff, Cat Core last week, now Sly Dunbar. What is your immediate response and reaction to the news that he had died today?
I'm saddened. You know, I was in a class and I got the shock of my life when I just glanced on my phone and saw the news that my students asked me what was happening to me. You know, I had to tell them what was happening. I'm absolutely shocked. Sly is a friend. Sly is somebody that I've known for almost 40 years, and we have worked together. As a producer, he has assisted me in terms of rhythm, Sly and Robbie. And we have been collaborators for a very long time, In terms of my academic work, he's one of my key interviewees, and we have a long-standing relationship. So I'm absolutely devastated right now. First it was Jimmy Cliff, now Sly, and of course Cat Core. It's the passing of so many great legends. It's in a sense kind of unbearable.
It's struggle for many people, but you knew many of these people personally. Help us understand, for viewers who may not grasp the scale of his influence, how would you describe Sly Dunbar's contribution to Jamaican music in global terms?
Absolutely amazing. Sly is probably the best, along with Robbie. They have contributed so much to the music, and Sly himself as a very brilliant innovator. He has shifted the music so many times. The 90s dancehall was all Sly. All of these great songs that you heard, from House Call, from Flex, from all of the songs that made it internationally. Songs like Maxi Priest, Wild World, and all of these songs, Sly had an input in it. And he shifted the music more than once. In every decade, Sly moved the music. In the 70s, he introduced the style called rockers, and in the 80s, he shifted it again. In the 90s, he shifted it again. And I was in the studio with him late in last year, and I was listening to some of the new stuff that Roar Baker and himself were putting out, and they are futuristic. I have done rhythms that Sly and Robbie played on, and when they did it, nobody wanted to be on those rhythms. They were so futuristic. And eventually, all of those rhythms were hit songs from my stable. In terms of his influence globally, he worked with Cyndi Lauper. He worked with Gwen Guthrie. Gwen Guthrie's song "Ain't Nothing Going On But the Rent," "Should Have Been You, Should Have Been Me." They did an album at Compass Point, people like Bob Dylan, Joe Cocker, all kinds of different people, and Sly and Robbie were artists themselves, so they got 2 Grammys. They had songs like, and they're the only artists apart from Junior Gong that has been nominated in other categories other than reggae in the Grammys.
So with that, then, we have a discography that is the envy of most musicians across the world. So some of the people that they would have worked with, Shaka Demus and Pliers, Murder, She Wrote, that Bam Bam rhythm would have been iconic. Murder, She Wrote. Yeah. We're unable to play the songs because we're also streaming on YouTube, and we want to make sure that we don't violate any rules there. But you have Black Uhuru, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. That iconic song there, that Rockers, is something that you spoke about a moment ago. No doubt. So moving into an entirely different genre, No Doubt the band, having them on there with Hey Baby and Underneath It All. Songs that younger people would know but might not know the connection that Sly and Robbie had. Inika Mosey with that iconic statement there, out in the streets they call it murder, based on rhythms created by Sly and Robbie. Dennis Brown with Money in My Pocket. You're hearing Baltimore, Jeffrey Isaacs, Night Nurse, based on rhythms created by them. Sly and Robbie.
Soon Forward.
There you go.
All of these great songs,
They were more than just musicians. They were, as you said, builders. I'll call it architects of sound. How did their music redefine rhythm sections in reggae and beyond?
I tell you, Herbie Lovebug, who was a producer for the group Salt and Pepper, he was so fascinated with the sound of Murder, She Wrote that he came to Jamaica to check out the studio that it was done. It was done in a small studio that never had even 24 tracks. And when Herbie saw where it was at Sonic Sounds. The studio was at Sonic Sounds. And when Herbie saw the studio that created this iconic sound that has been sampled and been used all over the world, reggaeton has taken it over. Zim dancehall, gengeton, all of these, and even Afrobeats have used the Murder She Wrote beat. And when Herbie saw the studio, he was totally amazed that they could get that sound out of it, you know. And Murder She Wrote is an interesting song because it became a hit internationally in an organic way. It was the Jamaican release, which was promoted at some of the stations in New York and Florida. And then after that generic, organic kind of appeal, Island Records jump in and the rest is history. And don't forget Twist and Shout, which was Shaka Demus and Pliers and Jack Radix. They did even better than the Beatles with that song. The song was an original Isley Brothers hit song, and the Beatles did it, and it went to probably the top 10 in the British chart. But Twist and Shout by Shaka Demus and Pliers and Shaka Demus went to #1 in England, outdoing the Beatles, you know. So and don't talk about their collaboration with Grace Jones.
Right, because that was also one of the big things that we had as well, put up to the bumper, having that sort of discography that
My Jamaican Guy.
Yes.
All of these songs.
These sorts of iconic things then that many Jamaicans might not have been aware of, that now they are now more in touch with. Sadly, after the passing.
The album Red, which is the Black Owl album, that was among Rolling Stone rated it among the top 100 albums of all time. Red.
Good. So, we know that Exodus made it to #1, but we don't know the rest of the songs, including then Black Uhuru and Sly and Robbie then being part of that. Unfortunate, though, that many Jamaicans will find out after his passing, but we do want to make sure that Jamaicans are remembering our icons. Dr. Dennis Howard, musicologist and lecturer and coordinator at the Entertainment and Cultural Enterprise Management Degree Program at the University of the West Indies Mona campus, thank you so much for helping us put that legacy into context.
You're welcome.
It's a difficult time for people like Dr. Howard, who've had to join us, not only talk about the loss of cultural icons, but his friends. So we want to send our deepest condolences to all who are impacted. The nation will mourn with you. Finally tonight, we're looking at extreme weather in foreign. The United States and Canada are dealing with winter storms. We'll find out how Jamaicans overseas are doing next inside Beat Story.
Hi, I'm Landy. Welcome to NLA Connect, the National Land Agency's customer engagement platform. NLA Connect is a simple, user-friendly platform designed to help you share your feedback, get support, and updates about land-related matters. Available 24/7, NLA Connect allows you to share suggestions, comments, and commendations, submit queries and report issues, attach files with your requests, track requests and get real-time status updates, connect with NLA client engagement officers, and provide feedback on the service received by the platform. We're making it easier for you to connect with us. You can access NLA Connect via our website, using the kiosk at any of our offices, or scanning the QR code displayed at our locations. Need any help along the way? Check out our FAQs section. It has all the answers you need in one location. NLA Connect, your voice, our priority.
Welcome to What a Guan. Now, What a Guan is CVMTV's new Vox Pop program, Vibes Yes Vox Pop program.
Hey Jamaica, you're watching What a Guan.
What a Guan.
Coming to you from Montego Bay. Hello, my people.
What a Guan is back.
The People's Program is back in full force this Monday at 8 a.m. on CVMTV.
Finally tonight, extreme winter storms are battering parts of Canada and the United States, leaving hundreds of thousands without power and many more residents trapped in their homes. For Jamaicans living abroad, particularly those unfamiliar with severe cold, these conditions can be dangerous. Joining us now is Professor at the Fanshawe College, Dr. Sharice Lyons, living in Canada, and Christopher Benjamin, a Jamaican living in New York. Good evening to you both. How are you feeling, Christopher Benjamin?
Hi, good evening. I'm doing well. It's warm inside the apartment, even though I've ventured outside a couple times. It's warm, and it's always good coming back to a very warm apartment. And when you have weather like this, you make soup.
There you go, because that's very Jamaican of you. That's very. It is warm, so you make soup sort of situation. Hold on, Dr. Sharice Lyons, you have soup ready up there as well in Canada?
Absolutely. Ready and waiting. If you join me now, you'll have some.
There you go. That's the spirit. That's the community vibe of Jamaicans as well. Dr. Lyons, it is white out cold there in Canada. People are watching and they're seeing this winter storm. I start with you because Canada, much more accustomed, Jamaicans would believe, to significant cold. But this winter storm looks epic, looking now like 50 inches of snow in some parts of Canada. What is it like? What's daily life look like right now, especially where you are?
Lots of snow, very cold, lots of motor vehicle accidents. People are being encouraged to stay home. But a lot of people still don't want to stay home. They think they've gotten accustomed to it and they'll be okay. But they've had several motor vehicle accidents. The police have indicated that in excess of 50 motor vehicle accidents just up to yesterday. And I heard of at least one fatality this morning. Oh, no. So dangerous conditions, lots of snow. It seems you can't plow often enough.
And that's a removal of the snow for people who are not accustomed to snow life at all. Seeing then what it looks like, and you saying to us that unfortunately you've heard of accidents. If you look through your window right now, what are you seeing? Are you seeing anything, or are you still seeing snowfall?
I'm seeing white.
So complete white.
And what's bad too?
Yes.
You spoke about the fact that Canada is accustomed to this sort of snowfall. And where I live, I actually live on the snow belt. So we are accustomed to it, but despite that, the winter has been especially brutal this year, to the extent that we have run out of salt in the road. So we have to be, I can speak specifically for the municipality here in London, they have to be mixing actual sand, because
to get grit on the road to then allow for people to have some sort of traction to make their way, and then to allow for the ice to melt sensibly when you in fact get to the place of the temperatures rising enough for the ice to melt. Christopher Benjamin, you're in the United States, you're in New York. Similar conditions like Dr. Lyons, or are you starting to thaw out right now?
Well, we don't have as much snow as what they have in Canada. When I saw on the news, persons have to dig out of their houses, no. But here, I'm actually in New York City, and where I am, yesterday was really bad, but it's bad because even though we're in winter and we're in a snow belt area, one of the things about what has happened over the last couple of years, and you could probably attribute it to climate change, we have gone through at least 2 winters of no snow, or little to no snow, to the point where persons were saying that, when we get into the spring, we're going to have drought conditions because it's the snow that melts that feeds the rivers and everything else that goes on. So this year, compared to what has happened over the past few years, is somewhat a sort of an anomaly. I walked out yesterday and I could barely see much in front of me because it was just constant. It wasn't heavy, but it was just constant. It's beating on your face. The streets where I am, we had about a foot of snow. which, just on the edge of the Washington Heights area of Manhattan. And for this area, that's a lot of snow at any one time. And then the unfortunate thing in terms of what is happening with the weather this week is that we had the snow yesterday and into this morning. We're going to have sub-zero temperatures for the rest of the week into the weekend. So that snow that is sitting on the road is going to now become blocks of ice. So for persons who drive and they haven't yet cleared out their cars, they're going to be stuck for a while unless they have, the heavy tools to dig out their vehicles from
and even ice. Then, they're going to have to now drive on these roadways that, though they have been cleared, are going to be covered once again. It's going to be slush. It's going to be dangerous conditions for persons making their way out.
The most important thing that for persons who drive, they have to be mindful of is what is known as black ice.
Yes.
So it's just a thin layer of ice on the road that you don't see. And so you might be driving and you think that the road is good and you have good traction, and then suddenly you're on a piece of black ice and your cars just start slipping along the road. And that's one of the things that happens in this period because it's so thin and it just really takes the color of the streets. That's why they call it black ice. So you don't see it and it becomes a danger. And as Professor Lyons just said, you're going to see an uptick in terms of accidents on the road, especially because people are going to be wanting to get back to their normal lives. And as they are on the road moving around, they're going to come upon this. And, it's just one of those things that comes with the winter.
Well, Sherry Lyons, I come to you because you're living there in Canada. For Jamaicans who have never experienced winter, and certainly not winter at a scale like this, what has been the most difficult adjustment?
I've been here a little while now, though I tell everybody I'm an island girl. I told my students last week, Wednesday, when it was snowing like crazy, I said, we're going to finish early so you can go out and go to the beach. They looked at me like I was the craziest person ever. But you know what? You have to make do with what you have. So you have to make light of it. You have to enjoy it. I think commute is one of the hardest things right now. And Mr. Benjamin spoke about black ice. That's very scary because think about, we know about hydroplaning.
Where there's water on the road surface, no longer allowing your brakes then to grip and your car is skidding along, hitting into likely something causing an accident.
Exactly. But in this situation, you're not seeing the water. What you see is nice road, asphalt ahead of you, and you're just going along, and then suddenly you're slipping and sliding, and everybody else is slipping and sliding, and you can't even, the natural thing to do out of impulse is to brake, and that's the worst thing you could possibly do.
What have you heard from family and friends, Christopher Benjamin? Because the experience in Canada, the experience in New York, at least you're accustomed to snow. You have plows, you have ice, you at least have some things to put in place. Georgia, for example, the state in which Atlanta is, doesn't have this. Washington, D.C., I've lived there when it snows. It's miserable. They have no resources whatsoever to deal with it. What have you been hearing from people now as they've been dealing with these massive conditions now in different places across the U.S.?
Well, I've heard from friends and family. I have some family in Philadelphia, and they're okay. You see, one of the things that happens is that if once you're accustomed to it, you plan your life accordingly. So what you'll find is that people would have gone out already. They would have stocked up on their salt and their ice melts. Some people will have sand. For those persons who have long driveways and otherwise that might need much more plowing, they book the service to come in and clear. And you understand as well that there are certain laws that require you to clear the sidewalk in front of your home. So a lot of people have been doing that. I've been online and seeing where friends and other persons have been posting about them going out and shoveling the snow from their sidewalks and their driveways, because it's just the thing that you do. And what you don't want is that you don't want the ice to be sitting there and then the snow to sit there and then it becomes this big block of ice.
Because you'll have to chip your way out of that then.
You have to chip your way out of it.
That's not going to be helpful at all for anybody. We just had some safety tips a moment ago while you were speaking for winter storms abroad, especially for Jamaicans, staying in safe, avoiding travel, layering up and wearing things, but also checking on neighbors and the elderly and following local emergency alerts. And that's something that both of you would have become accustomed to while living in Canada and the United States. But for those who are just coming up, just put on their winter jacket for the first time, shivering in regular conditions. I know, Dr. Lyons, you have people there who are saying to you, it's so cold in Canada. You're like, listen, it's so cold all the time. But we're gonna be catching up with you and checking